I've always been interested in art from a young age. My parents were artists, my brother and sister are artists, and I'm the only one who's not an artist. I'm still very much keen on in the art, and I've been brought up with art all my life. My name is James Birch, and I'm an art curator, and I've just written a book about Bacon in Moscow. I came to know Francis Bacon because being brought up in London across from the old zoological gates in Primrose Hill, Regent's Park, Francis Bacon used to come and see my parents after going to the zoo. And because during the summer holidays, my parents didn't really know what to do with my brother and sister and I, so they rented a cottage in a place called Fingringhoe, which is a little village near Colchester in Essex. And there's a river that divides Fingringhoe to Wivenhoe, and in Wivenhoe there was an illustrator called Dickie Chopping who did the dust jackets for the Ian Fleming's James Bond books, and he lived with his partner Dennis Worth Miller, who was a landscape abstract artist, but who lived with them from time to time was Francis Bacon. And during those periods of time in the summer when I was down staying in this cottage in Fingringhoe, Dickie and Dennis and Francis would come over, and that's how I first met Francis. And also at that time I was fascinated by a television program called Rawhide, and I was so obsessed by it I got nicknamed Rawhide. And so anyway, when Francis heard there was this child called Rawhide who was sort of tickled pink by the name. I had absolutely no interest really in the USSR as it was in those days, but I went to a party and I bumped into this friend of mine who said, what are you doing? And I said, I want to take 10 young artists, which I was exhibiting in London at the time, to New York, which was at that time very fashionable, I liked young artists, and this country was still pretty, pretty naive and not, it was very difficult to sell contemporary art. So he said, don't take them to New York, take them to Moscow. And he said, go to the Soviet section of UNESCO in Paris and look out for a man called Sergei Klokov. And that's exactly what I did. I was just sort of amazed by him. When I first met him, I think he had sort of black jeans on, black leather jacket, Easy Rider sunglasses, and a mail bag that he sort of was always clinking, because it probably had vodka in it. I took slides of photographs and showed them to Sergei Klokov, and he said, great, okay, I'll tell you who to write to. And I came back to London and wrote this letter. And nothing happened until sort of 6 months later when I got a telegram saying, please come to Moscow VIP. There is a photograph of him with his uncle, who had a sort of rather strange sort of, looks like a car seatbelt sort of eye patch, who was then sort of president of the Union of Artists, who would allow people to have exhibitions from abroad. And the young Sergei Klokov is sitting next door to Yuri Gagarin, who is probably, at that time, one of the most famous men in the world, having orbited the Earth. Well, I first met Elena Hudjakova with Sergei Klokov. When in Paris, I thought I was just going to take him out for lunch. But in fact, I took him, Elena, and two of his other friends. And what I found extraordinary was Elena, between each course, kept on leaving the table and coming back in a different outfit. And I thought, maybe this is a cultural thing. Maybe this is sort of what they do in Russia. I mean, I had no idea. But in fact, because I was from the West, and she thought, because she was a fashion designer, she thought that I might be able to lead her on to somewhere that she could then promote her clothing. And then, anyway, but Elena, I got to know, she's extremely sweet to me in Russia. She'd always pick me up outside my hotel. But then she came to live with me in London. And I was slightly shocked, because with the collapse of the Soviet Union, this friend of mine, who was also from the Union of Artists, said to me, James, would you like your KGB files? And I said, my KGB files? Yes. He said, there's about 2,000 pages and it would cost you $500. I thought, well, where's it coming from? And he said, it's all coming from Elena. And I'm thinking, well, what interesting thing could Elena tell them except whether I have 2 boiled eggs for breakfast or not? So I declined to buy them, which is quite annoying because I'd love to have seen them now, how mundane they would have been, I guess. Elena had been, I suppose, was been sort of reporting back at every movement I've been making to the Soviet Union. And in fact, I did find out later, and because I was quite sort of thought, this is a bit ridiculous. My telephone bill was quite enormous, because in those days, if you rang Russia, it would take 5 hours to get through. And it was just, I just thought, why you're reporting all this back? But and actually, literally only last year, I found out that if she hadn't reported back, probably some member of her family might have got into trouble. So it's quite shocking. It was a very sensitive time to put this exhibition together. Diplomats were getting expelled from both the Russian side and the British side, and Gorbachev had come into power in March 1985, and I met Sergei Klokov in Paris the same year, and perestroika and glasnost was coming into power, so things were thawing out. So the exhibition opened on the September 1988 at the Central House of Artists, which is a sort of brutalist building in sort of the middle of Moscow near Gorky Park, just to give you a sort of vague idea. What I remember most was there was unbelievable queues of people trying to come and see the exhibition. There were, I think over the period of 6 weeks, there was over 400,000 people came to see the exhibition, which is incredible. And I remember one man just looking at this Bacon painting for about 4.5 to 5 hours long, and he was absorbing something from the West that they hadn't seen before. They'd seen Bacon's pictures maybe in black and white magazines that are a bit dog-eared, but they'd never actually seen the painting. So it was like giving them a clink of light. It was fantastic. And that for me was the best moment, because it opened a whole new expanse of the West to them. What took me to Moscow to do an exhibition was, and my dream really was, that I thought through art we would change the world.